What is up, YouTube? My name is Enzo, and you're watching Enzoko. And here we are once again at the wonderful time of year when everyone is trying to get each other gifts, whether it be for their friends, their family, loved ones, or even just gifts from themselves. Everyone's trying to get everyone something special. And that includes beginner guitarists just like me, who, despite our limited knowledge in guitar, kind of want that extra push to keep going. You know what I mean? So, I'm going to assume that you're here watching this video because either you know someone who currently is learning how to play the guitar and kind of just needs that extra motivation to keep going, or B, you know someone who is interested in getting into the guitar hobby and, maybe they just need that first stepping stone so that they can kind of embark on this journey that is guitar. So, to address this in a way, I made a top 5 list of the best things that I think you should give to beginner guitarists so that you can kind of make their journey a little more fun and spice it up and whatnot. So without further ado, and in no particular order, let's begin with number 5. So for number 5, we begin with the all-essential guitar, because where would any guitar journey begin if not with a guitar? So before me right now are the two types of guitar that you can choose from. Over here we have the electric guitar, and over here we have the acoustic guitar. Now, aside from their obvious visual differences, they also operate very distinctly from one another, even if you can play the exact same things on the both of them. And what makes them so distinct is that they produce different sounds. Now, because of this different sound, you kind of have to make a more nuanced decision about which one to get for yourself or for the person you're buying for. And in order to do that, you might want to take a look at the music style that you're likely to play on this. So, to figure out your music style, let's take a look at your music taste. Let's see what kind of music you're into. So, let's say for example, you're into rock music, metal music. You're probably better suited to the electric guitar because most of the songs from that genre already use electric guitar. So, if you want to fit into the genre, use one of these. Meanwhile, on the other hand, if you are someone who's more into, let's say, pop songs or maybe country even, maybe even jazz, honestly, you could go for the acoustic guitar because most of the songs from that kind of genre use this kind of this guitar. In addition to the acoustic guitar, this is a steel strum acoustic guitar. There is another type of acoustic guitar which sadly I don't have an example right now. It's called the nylon guitar, also known as the classical guitar. And usually when you get one of those, your expectation is that you're going to play classical music, but you're not really limited to that on that thing. It's just the difference is that there's a difference in the strings between this one, which is steel strung, and that one, which is nylon strung. So it's softer on the fingers and whatnot, and so on and so forth. Might even be smaller. But, even with all of that, it's not set in stone what you can play on these things because, every guitar is versatile. So as long as it achieves the sound that you want to hear, it gets the job done. Now, aside from simply looking for the sound you wanted to make, you also have to think about the kind of the struggles, let's say, that might come with owning a specific guitar type. So, in the case of the electric guitar, you have many struggles in order to deal with making it sound a specific way. Now, on its own, it doesn't sound very special. It just sounds like this, but through a microphone or through a speaker, which is exactly what this thing is, the amplifier. This is one of the hassles that I have to go through if you own an electric. My back. So, aside from the guitar, you have to deal with that amplifier. You have to deal with cables, maybe pedals, and so on and so forth. The effect kind of stuff that you can use to make the sound special. And it makes it a big problem because if you're on your own and you don't have a car, or you're using public transit and whatnot, just walking across the streets with your instrument, it's a lot of load to carry. Meanwhile, acoustics on the other hand, they might be larger than this in terms of the guitar alone, and that means they're bulkier. But because of their size and because of the way they operate, there's less to carry. You don't have to deal with an amp, you don't have to deal with cables. I think at most you only have to worry about bringing a microphone, but even that's optional. And so the only thing you're worried about now is the bulk. It's a pretty big guitar. But worry not, both styles of guitar come in so many different shapes and sizes that it's inconceivable that you couldn't find one that's suited for you. So let's say the electric guitar is a bit too big for you. Bunch of different sizes, shapes and sizes, something that's more suited to your body style. Same goes for the acoustic. If you find this one too big, you know, there's smaller sizes, there's bigger sizes if you find it too small even. And if you're interested in learning more about either of these two guitars, I will leave my personal reviews of them in the comments, not the comments, in the description down below for your perusal at your time. So with number 5 out of the way, the guitar, let's move on to number 4. Moving on to number 4, we shift our focus to one of the most important aspects of playing a guitar, and that will be the strings. Now, strings matter because as beginner guitarists, ideally we would want to minimize the amount of effort that we have to exert onto playing to make the guitar sound the way we want it to. And one way to help yourself do that is by changing the strings from something thicker to something thinner, because thicker strings require more effort and strength to press down. Meanwhile, slimmer strings take less effort because, you know, they're not as thick. Now, that's especially true for acoustic guitars because most of them, by default, come up with something known as gauge 12s or gauge 11s, or worst case scenario, gauge 13s. Now, what gauge refers to is the thickness of the thinnest string. So, in my acoustic guitar's case, it would be this one, the high E. You can hear that. Now, all you really have to know is that the lower the gauge, the thinner the strings you have to press down. So, luckily for me, I have my acoustic guitar set up with gauge 10 strings. And so they're very light to the touch, and I don't have to put too much effort into playing them. So, you know, even someone like me, who's a beginner to some extent, could still do something like this rather easily. Up. Something like that. Now, if I brought out my electric guitar, which is also strung up with gauge 10 strings, I could probably pull off the same thing because they have the same thickness and it becomes easier to play. So clearly less effort is being exerted and I don't have to worry too much about the amount of strength I'm putting into playing. So if you have an electric guitar, you're probably good on the string gauge. If anything, you might want to stop there because sometimes they come default with 10s, sometimes they come with 9s, which is already pretty thin. Meanwhile, for acoustics, they can come anywhere from like 13 to 11. So you're going to want to grade down if you want it to be really easy. But that's really it. Just get a new set of strings that are probably lower than your current gauge and you'll be fine. So with that out of the way, let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is a tuner. A bit basic, sure, but you know, nonetheless still very essential as a tool for beginner guitarists. Now, on my guitar here, my acoustic guitar, you might not see it right away. But if you look closely, specifically at the sound hole, you'll see that there are 2 rubber stoppers, rubber clamps, yeah, that's the word, rubber clamps that attach my guitar's tuner to my acoustic guitar. And if I can just get it out of the guitar, you'll see that inside is this little guy. This particular tuner is a Korg rim pitch. See? Korg. There we go. Now, what this helps me do is that it helps me keep my guitar in tune, specifically standard tuning. And that's what 90% of beginners will be playing on anyway, so it's important to have one of these. Now, tuners like this come in so many different shapes and sizes, including even smartphone apps, so you might not even need one of these. However, it's still nice to have so that in the event that you don't have your smartphone, somehow, you have something that you could just put onto the guitar, whether it be acoustic, electric, or even a ukulele even. That's not a guitar, but you know what I mean. And you can just tune without having to worry about, let's say, your smartphone battery. And you just have to deal with an actual physical battery. Like this thing's, this is a CR1620. It's a small battery, but it keeps this thing alive for a while. So for this one, what it helps me do is if I press this button here, as you can see there's yellow light, and if I play a string, it allows me to listen for if my guitar is in tune for a specific string or not. So in my case, if I put it back into the guitar here, carefully, quickly, in the case of my guitar, it stops me from sounding like this, and instead, more like this. And that's what tuners are for. So now that we know how to tuners for, and that you should have one, let's move on to number 4. For number 4, we have a very highly mixed bag because it's comprised of so many different guitar accessories, guitar tools, and just general stuff that will help a beginner guitarist figure out how to play in the way that they want to. So we're going to start off with the most basic of them, picks. Now, I like to keep mine in this mint tin because they keep them all in one place. Now, these are my picks. Some of them I don't even use because I haven't figured out how to use them effectively. But for example, you got stuff like this, finger picks. They're very interesting. They're very fun to use. You've got thick picks of different shapes, like this one, the D'Addario Black Ice, which is 1.50 millimeters in thickness, which is a lot. You've got some interesting standard style tortoiseshell picks. These are plastic, celluloid or something like that. So they're not real tortoiseshell, but they look cool. They're nice to look at. And just a bunch of other picks that are like that. They even got stuff like this teardrop shape kind of one. It's really cool. And then, picks are always helpful to any guitarist because, we tend to lose them a lot. And then you got stuff like capos or capos or however you want to say them. These are very helpful for singer-songwriters who usually need to change their key from time to time, especially when they're singing or especially when they're accompanying someone when they play. So in the case of this, right now, for example, it's in standard tuning. It sounds like this. If I want to play a C chord, it sounds like that. But if I want to play a C chord in a different key, do this. Variety. Instant variety. And you don't have to work too much to do it. Just put a capo on, instant. After that, you have some more interesting accessories that help you express personality or just express comfort. So, in my case, this was a gift from a classmate. This is an Ernie Ball rainbow strap. Put it on the guitar, and then you can perform on stage. If you're looking for something more comfortable, you got things like this Gibson seatbelt style strap. Look at the texture on that. Very smooth. That's about it. It's very comfortable. And then past that, you have the things that will actually help you keep your guitar in shape. So in the case of electric guitars, for example, you have cables. These are very helpful to anyone, especially when cables can die almost constantly. Never hurts to have extras. Batteries for tuners. Maybe you have an electric guitar with active pickups. Maybe they use batteries like these. I doubt they do, but batteries are helpful. Just all across the board. And then when you want to give your little gift buddy a little more fun, you have things like slides. Really spices up the way you learn guitar. Now, I don't personally know how to use these, but I have one. And so it's fun to try new ideas with, pretending that I know how to use them. So they make the guitar sound fancy like this. And I can't play with that, but it's nice to have because at least it helps me explore new ideas and, up. And they serve as a way to kind of explore new territory with guitar. And that's really fun. Now, there's more accessories than the ones I've mentioned, but just a general purpose thing is that any small thing could probably be useful to a big extent. And it's very nice to have these little things. So now that we've got this mixed bag out of the way, we can move on to number 5. And arguably might be the most important of all of these gifts. Number 5 is lessons. Now, as much as I didn't want to put this into the list, it's ultimately very foundational to the development of any beginner guitarist because, as our title would suggest, we are beginners, and that means we are starting out and we're still learning new things. Not even learning new things, we're still learning how to even get started. And, for me, despite having played guitar for a little over 3 years now, it's like there's always something new to be learned, something new to be absorbed, something new to be inspired by, and that's an amazing thing. Now, what I have here, for example, is a Fender Play prepaid card. It came with my electric guitar, and sadly, I'm in the Philippines, so this does not really work here, but if I was in the US, for example, you could use these um, to get 3 months worth of lessons from Fender. And Fender isn't the only company to do this. I'm sure you could find a bunch of other teachers online. Uh, and it doesn't even have to be like a company. You could even find free lessons on YouTube, for example. There's so many lessons on YouTube that you could learn from and get started with the guitar. And if not for lessons, everything that I've mentioned prior to this would be useless. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's redundant. Anyway, at the end of the day, um, all of this is dependent on how well we can play and how well we can express ourselves and how well we can make the sounds that we want to hear out of the instruments that we play, right? And so lessons are a great way of keeping us hooked, keeping us educated, and keeping us in the loop of how to play the instrument that we love so dearly. And that's this little guy over here. Well, this big fella, but you know. So lessons. That's the most important thing. And as much as I probably enjoy looking at guitars and looking at new guitar stuff more than I am capable of playing, I have to admit, lessons are super important. So that's the top 5 gifts. Let's do a quick recap. We have the guitar, obviously, because where would you go? You have strings, you have tuners, you know, and then you have a bunch of accessories like capos, picks, straps, cables, and so many more, and finally lessons. And this is the most important one. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for watching. That is the end of this top 5 list. I hope you were able to gather something, and I hope that you're able to find one of these appealing for your gift recipient. So that's it from me. Once again, my name is Enzo, you're watching Enzoko, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out!